somebody mentions her name, my heart mellows. Be of good cheer. So my message today is that learn to encourage other people. And let us read Acts 23, 10 to 11. The commander commanded the soldiers to take him by force from among men and bring him into the barracks. By the following night, the Lord stood by him and said, "Be of good cheer, Paul. So you must also bear witness at Rome." Paul often displayed boldness, courage, and determination. Yet at the core, he remained very human. He had real emotions. He knew what it was like to be afraid and discouraged. We see his human side when confronted by Roman soldiers. After being threatened by a mob, Paul was taken into the barracks for protection. That night, Jesus himself spoke to Paul, telling him to be of good cheer. Jesus spoke this same Greek word to the woman who touched the hem of his garment and to his disciples after he walked on the water. Paul needed to hear this message. Paul needed to hear this message, and the specific word that Jesus spoke to him that night, he was reassured. The next morning, Paul was calm and clear-headed, focused and decisive. If there had been any uncertainty or discouragement, it was gone. He was of good cheer. If Paul could feel afraid and discouraged, we should not be surprised if we do too. No matter what we face, we can be of good courage. Remember that Jesus is with us. No matter what our needs are, he knows them. No matter how big our obstacles might be, he is with us to help us face them. No matter who threatens us, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. So I just want to encourage all of us on this in this class that receive God's word today. Don't be afraid or discouraged. It doesn't matter your circumstance. I don't know what your circumstance is. Jesus is with you. And so be of good cheer. So maybe a reflection question to you, which I might want one or two or three of you to testify. Are you feeling discouraged today, yesterday, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, about something? Those of us who have children, we get very discouraged when they're not walking the narrow path. At our place of work, we are bypassed for promotions. We are unfairly treated. Or there's sickness in the family and you really, really get discouraged. I just want you to remember that Jesus, after seeing Paul being thrown into the barracks and being frightened and his boldness and courage and determination fading away, the Lord stood by him and said, "Be of good cheer, Paul. So you must also bear witness in Rome." And just sharing a personal experience, as I've told you, that moment in my life was very difficult. But I don't want to call her a lady a mama. This mama, on a call from Jogo House, after she had watched the handover live on KTN, she said, Prof, be of good cheer, so that you might also bear witness to others in life, or be a witness. So before we pray, and normally we get into these sessions to rededicate our commitments and our faith. And that even when I go through the lessons today, and we have about 3 lectures to go through today, I just want you to be of good cheer. Anybody who wants to fortify today's sermonette.
Okay, and reflection, you can just, I think raising hand makes it easier to see.
That moment, it doesn't have to be today, yesterday, but that moment in life when somebody came to you, might not have said, be of good cheer, might have said, be strong. It shall come to pass. The same thing. Yes, Namanga, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for a very wonderful message this evening. Actually, today's reflection has really hitted on top of my head. Actually, sometimes we feel that we are down and we needed somebody to talk to us. And for today, Professor, you have really like you have prophesied on what I was feeling with my colleague or with about 2 of my colleagues in the office for the last 1 week. We have been having promotions actually in our department. I don't want to specify which department.
No,
yes, yeah, we have worked for a period like 10 years without promotion. And we see there are young individuals who have just been promoted from just the other year, like 2021, 2022. They usually bypass us. But when it comes to work, we actually do an elephant work compared to our colleague. Professor, it's like you are God sent, because the message has really hit the bottom of my heart, actually. And it is a word of encouragement to me, because as we are speaking now, we are about like 2 of us. We have been told that we have been left again for the next next promotion, of which we are a bit discouraged, and we looked like we don't understand why we should not be promoted, because of maybe where we come from, okay, because of maybe the tribe or such. But thank you for the message, because already I've really gotten the message today that I need to be of good cheer. I'm encouraged now, because with all that, there is Jesus. There is Jesus who normally sees us through. And you have said that one day, one time, we shall come and prophesy, and also claim that one day there was we were down, but another day we are going to be up. Thank you, Professor, for the reflection of the today's. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. And Yeah, I'll also tell you to remain of good cheer. And it is in these moments of unfairness, these moments of adversity, that the best begins to come towards you. That's what I've realized in life. So just be of good cheer, and just know that you know, he is greater, the one that is in you, than the one in the world. Thank you very much. Any other one more reflection response, then we move on. Yes, Sylvia Muichuli, please.
Hi, Prof. Thank you for that encouraging word. I think for me, the moment that I was really disappointed was about 2 years ago when the new government came in, and I put in my application for PS position.
Yeah.
And I had one of the principals who formed the party. My name was number one on his list. My name was number one on his list. So
yes.
I knew that come that day, I was going to be a PS and my life was going to change. So when I went to sleep that night, that principal called me and told me, everything is set. I'm just coming from State House, and I can confirm to you that tomorrow wear a nice suit because you're going to be called. And unfortunately for me, when the names were read, there was a Sylvia on the list, but it wasn't me.
Okay.
And I was disappointed. Oh my goodness! You know that when you do such interviews, they put the interviews in the paper. So they had put our names in the paper. So all my friends, family, anybody knew that I had done that interview. I was disappointed, but thank you for the message today, because it's important that no matter what happens, that we should be of good cheer, because God knows. God knows why certain things happen the way they do.
Yeah.
So that's my story. Thank you for allowing us to share.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you for sharing. That what you're doing is that you're passing God's message to somebody else, and that's very important. Josephine Guta, and then we'll end with Evans, a senior. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. And let me say tonight, I'm very encouraged by the encouragement of that you've given to us on being of good cheer. I've for the last 3 weeks, I've gone through so much at my duty station, and I was there's one night that I woke up and I had to go to hospital to check my blood pressure because there was a lot that was going around, and I almost even resigned, but then I still asked myself, why should I resign without explaining myself and letting the ones in charge make a decision on some of the things that I'm being accused of, which are not the correct version. And through that time, I think the only thing I could do is to pray very much. And I really prayed about it. And the only person I could find to talk to was my mom. And I shared with her, and I decided now I'll wait and I'll express myself. And when I'm called upon, I will explain everything as it is. And then they will make the decision on the way forward. And to tell you, on Tuesday, we had a meeting with some of the managers, and I explained everything the way it is. And just to realize that it was just a small thing as compared to how whoever was blowing it out of proportion was doing it. And that is the time I realized sometimes we just need to look upon God. Even when everything is sinking, the ground around us is sinking, we can only trust God in the process, because when you are telling the truth always defends itself. So thank you for the encouragement tonight.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. And may God continue to strengthen you. Evans, a senior, you're the last. Then we go to research.
Good evening, Professor.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. So I just wanted to say you've always been an inspiration to me. And you've shared your story, and I just remembered one story that happened almost 1.5 years ago. So being young, sometimes within our workplaces, look sometimes like a scene in a way. So God blessed me at one moment. I started rising in my career, and I was recommended. I actually became the dean of students of a certain college, which I don't want to mention. Then within 6 months, the management changed. You see, now the new government came in. Then there was that politics. Why is this young man holding such a senior position? And why should he be here? And many other things. So I remember in 2023, December, just after the Christmas, I just, I was planning to move my wife now to Nairobi because we just had our 6 months baby. Our baby was actually 6 months old. And I was planning her to transfer her now to Nairobi. And the process was going on well. But just after Christmas, I got a call and I was told you are now being transferred to Tharaka Nithi. That was a difficult moment, Professor. It was very, very difficult. It has never gotten over my head. But I moved to Tharaka Nithi. I had actually enrolled for MBA in MKU. I stopped going to class. I had applied for help. There's a problem here and there, so I stopped the program. I went to Tharaka Nithi, just trusted God that one day I will have to fulfill my dreams. So I made a difficult decision of actually relinquishing the duties because now I went there as a registrar, student affairs. I had to relinquish the duties and come back now to Kisumu. So a campus in Kisumu. So that's where I am. And when I share these stories, they sound so real to me because I had to let go all that for the sake of my family, for the sake of my own personal growth. And why I can see God in this is that now I have time to pursue this master's in what I really loved, the education field. Without now any other attachments.
Encumbrances.
Yes, exactly. My career, I can see in the next few years, I can now see within 5 years, I can see myself pursuing the PhD. You say the policy and administration? And I can see myself now even more better than those that I left in Nairobi in terms of peace. I can access my family just in Vihiga here every weekend. And so thank you for sharing your stories.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Walter, is your hand up? I thought we were closing. But
my hand is up, not because I want to share, but I want to say that on the 8th, actually, as we meet you, spare a moment for us to share our testimonials and testimonies, because I think it will form part of the 8th of March, a session for us just to share some of these inspirational stories, not in person, but in a way that we can inspire each other. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to get moving for the day. But I always tell you, never panic. We are not doing enough. We'll do enough. Me, I'm available, and I want to teach research methods in a manner that will make sense to all of us in life. Okay. I want to recap something here that we should not lose sight of. And I want you people to note that what we are doing now are research designs. And last time I was looking at the qualitative aspect of research, and I concentrated on the ethnographic design because that is the most common. But remember, there are many other designs under the qualitative sphere. Because of time, if we'll meet other designs, we'll do it when we are doing our proposal, and that will be at individual level. So today, I want to spend some time in the quantitative domain, and then in the quantitative domain, I'll do two types of designs, survey and correlational, and then go back to the qualitative and add a second design to the ethnographic design. I haven't decided, might do the case study or do the phenomenological design, so that you have at least one or two designs for you to use as a point of reference. So I am now under the quantitative paradigm, and I want to use survey designs to illustrate to you. And remember, we are now in chapter 3, where we are doing research methodology, philosophical underpinnings of research. We have revisited the research gaps. We have talked about population and sampling. We haven't really covered the details of sampling, but that will come later. I just want you to sit in chapter 3 first. But when we start to write, I will intersperse with more theory around those constructs in chapter 3. So again, that's our course book. But what do I expect you to accumulate? You must be able to define survey research and describe when it is used and how it developed. You must be able to describe the types of survey designs, identify the key characteristics of survey research, describe how to construct and use a mailed questionnaire, describe how to design and conduct an interview survey, identify potential ethical issues, list the steps in conducting survey research, and identify criteria useful for evaluating survey research. So, I want you to note this. What is survey research? I want you to note that survey falls predominantly in quantitative. There are procedures. These designs are carried out in quantitative research in which you, the investigator, administers a survey to a sample or to the entire population of people in order to describe attitudes, opinions, behaviors, or characteristics of the population. Remember, last time we talked about ethnographic design. That is in the qualitative arena. And there, you, the researcher, you are the instrument. You are the instrument for data collection. In this one, you are simply administering a survey, either to the sample or the whole population. So when do we use a survey? We use a survey to assess trends, to assess opinions, beliefs, and attitudes, assess for follow-up analysis or for evaluations. And there's a brief here, which I really don't want you to engage with, but have an idea. It is a very old procedure for data collection. 1817, 1890, 1907, World War I, World War II, sampling techniques improved, and applications began to vary from social science to media. And universities established social science research centers. And private organizations like OLAP, Rand Corporation, or ROPA formed their own survey centers. And we know even in Kenya, we have pollsters. You know them. So that is the method, but it sits, and I want you to learn this, that this sits in the quantitative space. When you study something over time, like if you are studying students in Daystar in first year, and you want to show their progression up to fourth year, that is called a longitudinal survey. Longitudinal, over time, 1 year, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years. But when you study at one point in time, in other words, you walk into a situation and you walk out, then we talk about cross-sectional survey. So there's a longitudinal survey, there's a cross-sectional survey. Most of you will engage with cross-sectional survey. You'll go into an institution, you'll give out your tools, you'll collect the data and walk out and go to analyze. But some people can be charged to do longitudinal studies, a study over 2 months, 3 months, over 1 year. And under longitudinal studies, you are looking for trends in the same population over time. Or you are looking for changes in a subpopulation group identified by common characteristics over time. So, for example, the ODM party is a subpopulation, and you are trying to trace a common characteristics over time in this party, from the time of men in black to today. Or you are looking at changes in the same people over time. What has happened among the Catholic brethren? When I go to attend service, long time ago, we used to say, the Catholic services are very boring. But today, they sing, they play the kayamba, they play drums, and they dance. You can study those changes in the same people over time. So that is a longitudinal survey. In a cross-sectional survey, you get into study attitudes and practices, like how do teachers handle CBC mathematics. So you go in with a questionnaire and you walk out. Or community needs. What do the people, the Ndorobo people, lack up in the forest? Or you can go in to do a program evaluation, like this program now. After cohort 4, we shall have to do a program evaluation across sectional. We get in and collect data from cohort 1, cohort 2, cohort 3, cohort 4, and we assess the program. Usually, you have group comparisons. How is the teaching of maths in urban centers in Nairobi compared to the national performance? But for now, I just want you to know that in collecting data, the survey design is located in the quantitative domain. Key characteristics of survey research: sampling from a population. Once you see that, when you see the word sampling, I hope you know we are talking about randomness. And I hope you know that you have taken a subset of the population to study that characteristic in the population. You collect data through questionnaires or interviews. That's what you're going to do in your chapter 3. In your proposal, you'll tell us how you're going to collect data through questionnaires or interviews. You have to design instruments for data collection. And we'll spend some time just to give you a peep on how you do it. Although, for most of you, I would tell you don't reinvent the wheel. We have so many instruments now online that have been validated. They measure what they're supposed to measure. So you simply get one of those instruments and you domesticate it to your study. You want a very high response rate when you are doing a survey because you have already sampled the population. So you want, you will tell us what was the rate of response. Was it 70%? Was it 80%? Or was it 40%? If it is 40%, you begin to worry because you are increasing what we call the sampling error. So that's survey. I think it is, just give me a minute. Give me a minute. Let me get rid of this. Yeah, I think that's better. So, population, target population, sampling frame, and sample. The population is a group of individuals having one characteristic that distinguishes them from the other groups. So remember, a population has a particular characteristic. It could be the ethnic formation. It could be gender. It could be those infected by tuberculosis. It could be those, the characteristic would be those in national schools, teachers teaching in national schools. That is your characteristic. Or it could be the population of drivers who have no licenses. So remember, is a characteristic. The target population or sampling frame is the actual list of sampling units from which the sample is selected. So you must have a sampling frame. You must have the list of all sub-county schools in Tharaka Nithi. Or you must have a list of all sub-county hospitals in Meru. Or you must have a list of all female teachers who have a master's degree in Nairobi County. That is your sampling frame. So you're going to pick, that is your target population. You're going to pick your sample from that sampling frame. What is a sample? Is a group of participants in a study selected from the target population from which the researcher generalizes to the target population. So I am bringing in something here. There is a population, there is the target population from which you will sample. So the target population provides you the sampling frame. And then there is the sample. The sample is a group of participants or a group of items selected from the target population from which the researcher generalizes to the target population and the overall population of the study. How do we reduce error in a survey research? Because error is a problem. Reducing coverage error means you must have a good sampling frame list on which to select individuals. So your sampling frame is very important. For example, if you are looking for students who join MTC every year from Kakamega County, then you must have a sampling frame or a target population that will give you the characteristic which is joining MTC. Otherwise, if your frame is not going to capture all those who have joined MTC or represent the proportion in the population, then the error will be very high. You'll have left very many out. Yeah. And then reducing sampling error, you select a large sample from the population as possible. So many of you will ask me questions, how do I know that my sample is large enough? We will come to that. It is a statistical function, but nowadays we have tables where you just give us your population and statistically we'll tell you what your sample size should be. So that is reducing sampling error, reducing coverage error, and now reducing measurement error. Use a good instrument with clear and ambiguous questions and response options. Yeah, so you must be able to do that. You must use an instrument that is clear. And most of you end up with questionnaires that don't measure what they're supposed to measure. They are ambiguous, and the people responding to your questionnaire feel like they're in prison. And then reducing non-response error. So you have to use rigorous administration procedures to achieve as large a return rate as possible. So I'm trying to open up your mind that we don't just talk about sampling error or survey. Is it coverage? Is it the sampling itself, the sample itself? Is it the measurement? That means your tool is not measuring what it's supposed to measure. Or is it non-response? Very few people responded to your questionnaire. So forms of data collection based on who completes or records the data. So who completes or records the data? Participant. We have mailed questionnaires or electronic questionnaires. Mail here is not PO box. It is now email. Who completes or records the data? Is it the researcher? One-on-one? That is individual interview. To a group? That means you bring a focus group interview. You bring about 8 people from the community and you want to interview them about the success of the water project. Or you can also interview over telephone. So now we are seeing forms of data collection based on who completes or records the data. So it can be the researcher or it can be the participant. Aspects of survey instrument design are personal, attitudinal, behavioral, sensitive, scale, or open-ended. And I'll elaborate on this later. But there are aspects of a survey instrument. Survey instrument, instrument tool, instrument questionnaire, instrument interview schedule. That's what we are saying. Question construction problems. The question is unclear. You read it, the respondent can't understand what you're trying to ask. They are what we call double-barreled questions. They are asking 2 questions in one. And so you don't know what answer to give. Did you arrive late? Do you normally arrive late to school due to? So if I normally arrive late to school and then you say due to lack of transport, you see, I'm hesitant. I normally arrive late to school because I have a sick spouse. So this begins to give me problems because that is not why I arrive late to school. And then some questions are very wordy, very wordy. Or a question is negatively worded. And we'll give you examples from your book, your text. They're just negatively worded. You then influence the psyche of the respondent. And then we have overlapping responses. And then you have a difficulty in knowing which one actually was answering the question I asked. The other problem is that you have questions that contain jargon. Questions that contain jargon. So you have questions, but they are full of jargon. And I don't understand that jargon. So I might answer what I think is the answer might not be the answer. So questions contain jargon. There are unbalanced response options. There's a mismatch between the questions and the answers. In fact, you look at the question, you're not seeing the answer in the alternatives you're given. Questions includes overly technical language, too tough, that I have not studied enough research to know what you're saying. And not all questions are applicable to all the participants. So if you go to where I was born in Maragoli, and you're looking at culture, and one of your questions is, when were you circumcised? Or which was your age group? And you throw that question in a focus group or in a class. Of course, the females, those questions are not applicable to them. They wouldn't know, or they have never heard, they have never even imagined. You will have to do pilot testing before you roll out your data collection. You'll do a test on a small number of individuals in the sample. So if your sample is 200 people, you will do a pilot on 20 people who are randomly selected to form that sample. Ask for written feedback on the questions. Let them tell you, how was that question? Did you understand? What did it mean to you? So that you can correct the tool to avoid jargon and redundancies. You then revise the survey based on the written comments. You now change some of the items if need be. And when you're going to do the final sample, please don't bring in the pilot participants. They've already seen the questionnaire. They can carry biases into that space. So the pilot, you don't bring those participants to be part of the final sample. Response rates are, I think, very important for us to note as we look at these surveys. Very important. We need to note that when you go out, you will of course mail out the original questionnaire with a cover letter, email out. You follow it in 2 weeks with a second mailing of the questionnaire to those who have not responded. So you are persistent. And you follow up again in 2 weeks with a postcard to non-respondents, reminding them to complete the questionnaire. So you want the response rate to be good, to be high. So there must be a deliberate effort. After 2 weeks you send, and then a reminder. So in administration of a survey instrument, there's the first mailing of the survey, the second mailing of the survey, and then the reminder over a period of 6 weeks. But if on the first mailing you got, let's say, 85 to 90% response, then you don't have to do step 2 and 3. You are good to go. How do you plan and conduct a mailed questionnaire survey? You write a cover letter to invite the participants to complete the questionnaire. You form and construct the questionnaire, and you identify what statistical procedures will be used to analyze data from the mailed questionnaire. So this you must plan. The second one, the second bullet, is what I was saying. You have to sit with your supervisor, and your supervisor should help you in looking at your questionnaire, or take you to what we call the Survey Monkey website, and you'll get all kinds of questionnaires measuring behavior, measuring commitment, measuring all kinds of aspects So you don't need to construct them yourself. But you and your supervisor will have to sit down and form the questionnaire and then pilot that questionnaire to see that people are answering what they're supposed to answer. Now, an interview survey, planning and designing, the interviewer should maintain a neutral stance during the interview. So don't take your emotions there. Oh, Vane, I know you had a lot of problems during that delivery. And you are talking, you are doing an interview on how many mamas go to hospital for delivery and those who deliver at home. You now begin to start wailing with them. You train the interviewers prior to the interview. The people are going to interview members in your sample. You take good notes of responses or use a tape recorder. But you must tell your audience you are taping them and they must give you their consent. That is in ethics, we'll come to that. And for telephone interviews, develop a telephone interview guide prior to the interview. So have a very clear interview guide so that you're not meandering. You are telling the respondent, I'm going to ask you questions in these areas, and please feel free to seek for clarification, because these are interviews. Interviews are not like the questionnaires. And develop a rapport that encourages that person to give you the information you're looking for. So steps in conducting survey research: decide if a survey is the best design to use. So you must convince yourself, since I have a population and I have sampled this population, and most university students have an email address from the university, then I am going to use the survey research. Identify the research questions or hypothesis. Identify the population. We have now introduced the sampling frame. Sampling frame, that is the target population from which you will draw your sample. Then determine the survey design and data collection procedures. Now, potential ethical issues in survey research, and we will spend some time on this last aspect in chapter 3, ethical issues. Overstating the benefits of participating in the study. That is not right. Don't entice people. Placing interviewers or participants in unsafe situations. You are asking them awkward questions. That is not right. Protecting confidentiality of survey responses. So what you are told must live up to the standard of confidentiality. And this is a promise, and your promise should be as good as your bond. Don't go around saying, I interviewed so and so. And after you finish your study, don't keep those instruments. There's a period. Universities will allow you to have those instruments in case there are queries about your data collection. We think you didn't go out, but don't make sure that you have them so that we can make reference to them. So steps in conducting survey research: develop or locate an instrument. And me, I would like you to locate most of the time. Administer the instrument. Analyze the data to address the research questions or hypotheses, and then you write the report. So you're now going into chapter 3. When you are doing your proposal defense, it will be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I expect you to give me the tools at the end of your chapter 3 as an appendix. So during the defense, we would like to look at your tools. Because after that, you're going to the field. Just a minute. So evaluating the survey research, was the target population or sampling frame clearly specified? Was the sampling procedure specified? How did you sample? If a random sample was not used, were modifications from it explained? Was the sample clearly identified and the basis on which it was chosen specified? Did the type of survey match the questions or hypothesis advanced by the author? Was it clear whether a questionnaire or an interview survey comprised the form of data collection? Did the researcher identify the basis for selecting or developing the instrument? You know, this is now when I'm marking your work, your proposal, when I'm marking your thesis. Was information reported on the reliability and validity of scores from past use of the questionnaire or interview? So validity, reliability, we'll come to that. But note that your findings must be reproducible, number one. Then they are reliable. And your findings must be valid. In other words, they must measure what they are supposed to measure. So did the author mention the dates on which the questionnaire or interview was administered? Were the administration procedures clearly identified? This is what I'll want to see in your chapter 3 as you write your proposal. And you'll have this tool, you'll have this presentation as reference material. If a questionnaire was used, were the procedures for obtaining responses identified? Were follow-up procedures used to ensure a high response rate? So if you say the first round I only got 35 respondents, how did you increase the response rate? It meant you resent the questionnaire, you sent a reminder. Did the data analysis match the research questions or hypotheses to be answered? If an interview was used, were the field procedures for collecting this information specified? The interview. How did you set up the appointment? Were you recording what he or she was saying, and did you inform her? So like, were demographic characteristics, previous experience, training, and monitoring discussed in the interview? Very important. Did the researcher check on the reliability and validity of the scores from the data collection in the study? Was the study written scientifically and ethically? So the survey design is a very elaborate design of data collection, and it's the most common that many of you will work with. And I'll want you to go to the class text and go over the survey design and make sure that the points are truly coming home. I'll pause there for any comments, any questions. you like to pause, you are free. But note that the other day I only talked about the sample, the population and the sample. Today there's something in between called a sampling frame or the target population or the targeted population. So we'll pause there and pick any reactions that, any concerns, anything that you want clarity. This is the time.
Silence also, or no hands up, could also mean.
Could also mean Sylvia has raised her hand.
Prof, thank you so much for that very clear presentation. I just wanted to ask, why would you exclude the people you've worked on the pilot study with from the final survey? What is the reason for that? Thank you.
You are, if I'm using research language, I'll say you are minimizing bias. But if I wanted to use ordinary language, I would say those people have already leaked the exam. They will be biased even when they're now answering. I don't know whether you get it. So you try to avoid that as much as possible. Yeah.
Ian Kimathi.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Prof.
Good evening to you.
Yes, I was to ask, is there a timeline for piloting? Is there a specific time that you should take to do your piloting?
No, it depends on the target population. It depends on your sampling frame. So, no. I would say a very firm no.
Thank you, Prof. Jen and Jichi.
Okay, my question is also on pilot studying. Is it a must to have a pilot study in the same, for example, the same institution or the same area where you are doing the research, or you can do it outside, but the characteristics being the same as to your focus study area?
Just remember, your pilot will come from your target population, from your sampling frame. So it is a must. Yeah? Otherwise, it isn't quite a pilot. If you get what I'm saying.
I am. Thank you.
Esther Njoki.
Thank you so much, Prof, for such an elaborate teaching. I have a question on the non-response error, and I'm just wondering what would happen if you really will not be able to get the standard responses, even if you keep maybe trying to get it. And then you have said that we should use the rigorous admin procedures. And I'm just wondering, what are some of the examples of these rigorous admin procedures? And then the other question.
Just let me answer those two first.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, a rigorous admin procedure would involve sending, resending, reminding. A rigorous regime procedure would mean training of the interviewers or the data collection people. A rigorous admin procedure would mean you will inform and reassure the respondents of the ethical expectations surrounding research. Yeah. Are you getting that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was the other question?
I think maybe it has been answered by that, because I was wondering if there is a way of determining whether the responses given are correct, or maybe the respondents or the sample size have corroborated to just maybe give
Oh, no,
some
no. Yeah,
incorrect
that's a
information.
different question. That's a different question. So if you want, that is, we say in research, testing the veracity of the pronouncements of the respondents, the truthfulness. You can't really tell. That's why we shall do triangulation. We, after collecting data from these people, for example, if there are students in a high school, you then do an interview with the parents or the head teacher or the boarding master and see whether those respondents are collaborative to test the veracity of what the students were telling you. Are we together?
Yeah.
That is different. Yeah. So we'll be doing that when we get to the actual proposal. I'll be asking you, how do you overcome not what you people call the delimitation, but the limitation in the study. One of the limitations in all research is the veracity, the truthfulness of the pronouncements. The other one is the validity and reliability of the instrument. So we are picking these terms now, but we are going to come to them when we are writing our actual proposals.
Thanks, Esther. We've got John Chage. John.
Thank you, Prof, for the rich teaching.
Yeah.
I request your comment on a research I participated in 2012 by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. It was on poverty assessment. We did a pilot in Limuru sub-county of Kiambu County. And the pilot involved interviewing a group of participants in a village setup, and then questionnaires, administering questionnaires in some homes, and then interviewing key informants like the head of education in the sub-county, the head of health and all that.
Yeah.
But when it came to the actual research, we went to Gatondo South.
You went to?
Gatondo South. Pilot was
Yes.
in Limuru.
Yeah.
The actual research was in Gatondo South the same year in November. The pilot was in February. The research was in November. But when we went to Gatondo South, the environment was so hostile that we didn't even finish the research. And actually,
what did they want?
I think we landed in a village where, you know, the Changa dens, where the center of you get the picture. These people, they could not cooperate. You know, they are almost, you cannot control them. So we did in a rush. And actually we missed out on the point of going to the homes to administer the questionnaires. And when we asked the lead of all these, whether we are going to the homes, and he asked us, can you go back to such a place? And so we did. So my question is, they went ahead, they did their report. What is your comment on that? The pilot was, we did it so well. Actually, we are so excited. We did it excellently. But the actual research, something was wrong and they ended up, you know, we didn't complete. What is your view on such a scenario?
So your results are not valid. The results of that study are not valid. And when results are not valid in research, it means those results are false. Yes. So that is my take. But there are always ways, if you find such encounters, you can carry that research to another demographic area. Don't try to push it if you didn't get the anticipated results. Don't.
Prof, we have two more,
Okay.
Phoebe Muteti and then Doreen. But just following that pronouncement that you've made, would they, because it's a client-based project, they have given out a survey to do, a job to do, they did the initial pilot and they had results, would they use those results to return?
No.
As you,
no. And just to explain those circumstances and urge that we can set up this same research in a similar location.
Thank you. That's a question of ethics and truthfulness, I guess.
Ethics. Yeah, very good. Go ahead, the others.
Phoebe Muteti and then Doreen.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Your explanation makes research so clear for me, and I believe it will be clear when I start undertaking. But allow me to ask the difference between piloting and testing, and which one is preferred?
Piloting is pre-testing, all right? Let's agree on that first. And I want you to note that I told you I'm going to do 3 designs. This design I've just done of survey design can actually be squeezed into a qualitative space, but I don't want to go there. Leave it at quantitative. This one that is coming up, action research design, is also able to sit in both situations. But there is the third design I hope to do tonight, and that is experimental design. Then you don't talk about a pilot, you talk about pre-test and post-test. But pilot is, we use it easily because it traverses qualitative, quantitative, and by extension, the mixed methods. But when we come to, like those of you in psychology, for example, we'll be interested in pre-tests for reasons that we'll come to later on, and I hope for reasons that will be touched in your statistics class. RCTs, randomized control tests, we do pre-tests. You don't really do a pilot, you do pre-tests. Even in action research, you don't really do a pilot, you do a pre-test, but maybe this will become clear as I go through this. Okay, let's shift gears. So Magdalene, make sure we send the survey designs notes to the students, and I hope we sent them the ethnographics. Somebody, Helen, you are really messing my slides. Huh? We will have this slide sent to you. I hope you got the ethnographic design slides, because I want you to have all these for reference. Action research designs, we will go through this. I normally don't want to anticipate what you're going to do, but what is action research? And please, can I have some disciples here? Can I have some of you who will be determined to use this design for your thesis? So action research is systematic inquiry if I'm talking to teachers, done by teachers, but it can be done by managers. It can be done by sports people. It is done in a setting that can be controlled, like a classroom, like a sports facility. So we'll use teachers here, done by teachers or other individuals in an education setting, to gather information about the poor results in maths in Senende Secondary School and subsequently improve the ways their particular educational setting operates, how they teach, and how well their students learn. So action research is very practical. You have to sit in that situation. So it cannot be cross-sectional. It takes on some form of longitudinal, but maybe in a month or 2 months or a semester. So you get in and you gather information about the teaching of English. And then try to treat the teaching of English, peana dawa, to see whether that dawa will change the understanding of that set book. And as you do the action research, you first of all, you look at the instructional materials, you look at the pedagogy, and you'll also look at the pedagogy, how they teach and how they learn, and then try to intervene, try to treat that situation. That's a very interesting way. That would be a very interesting thesis. When do you use action research? When you have an educational problem to solve, for example. When educators want to reflect on their own practices. Why is Mr. Ngugi's class in chemistry always doing well in organic chemistry, and Ayiro's class does exceptionally well in the calculations? And this is a real example at Sunshine. We co-taught chemistry with Mr. Ngugi, and in organic chemistry, my students could never match his. But when it came to calculations, around the mole concept, titrations, around redox reactions, he had a problem. So what did we agree? We agreed when it is organic chemistry, Ngugi combines the classes. And when we are doing computations on the mole concept, I do that. So that was some type of action research. When do you want to address school-wide problems? When you want to address school-wide problems, when teachers want to improve their practices, when educators want to participate in a research project, action research. I have never understood, particularly the teachers of English. You know that set book you failed, you failed during your time in school. And then unfortunately, the universe conspires and they bring it back as a set book. Kwa nini unang'ang'ana na hiyo? Why can't you say, no, this book, no? Please, Otieno, teach that book for me. I'll teach the other book. But you unang'ang'ana, you know you're going to fail those students the way you failed. Eh? But you don't want your self-esteem to go down. So how action research developed? And we are using an example from education. In service days, teacher staff development activities. Then you had school-based committees. Then you had professional inquiry by teachers, self-study. And then you had teacher initiated research studies. So they evolved out of a need. That's all I'm saying. Action research. And I want some of you who are not in education to come to me and say, would this setup be appropriate for an action research? Why action research is important? It encourages change. It fosters a democratic approach to education, involvement of many individuals freely. It empowers individuals through collaboration on projects.
Prof, you there?
I think we've lost Prof. His connection is gone static. We can just give him a few minutes to reboot.
Yeah, you're taking up your notes. I'm taking up my notes so that I know people asking whether I'll share the topics. Of course, I'll share the topics for cohort 1. People should be thinking right now. And actually, Magda sent Magda has sent a link so that people can start inputting in your topic and the area of focus, so that by the time Prof finishes this chapter 3, you know, sometimes I always say you write with him. You write with him. You might be surprised that people here will. I think there's already 1 or 2 people who already are almost completing their proposals. So let's work together. You know, now this is chapter 3. Share the link, please. Do you mean the link of defenses? Mishak, I saw you've come in. Where are the links for the defenses? Could you please share the proposal defenses? I went to the ODL DU. I didn't see them.
Okay. All right, Doc, we'll ensure they are shared. But just a quick one. The Zoom we used for the defenses does not allow the live streaming like the current one. So we did the manual recording. They were being put together by Pojano, so they should be available. I'll follow up. Thank you.
It wasn't allowing, that's a setup because it actually should. If you're using the other Zoom, I don't know if I can open to, is it possible? No, it may not be possible. I'm surprised because
Dr. Prof is trying to log back in. He dropped out, but he's trying to log back in, so we can be a little bit patient.
Thanks, Walter. Doc, so where will we get those, the defenses? Where will they be posted?
I think Sylvia will just share them on the group because they are YouTube links. That would be easier. We will not want to
share.
have them on the online. Yeah.
Worry not. Worry not, unless otherwise, because
all right.
Yeah.
What about that? Trying to come back.
If anyone can get to know what song Prof is humming, you eat fast during our event on the 8th, if you can tell what song is humming.
Okay. I hope I'm back. Am I back?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. The house internet just went off, so I've gotten to some other connection. But the point I was trying to deal with was this one. Action research promotes a process of testing new ideas. And it will be very interesting. I had two of my students I had two students who tried action research in Moi, and it turned out to be just amazing. It takes a lot of support for the students, but it's very interesting. So types of action research designs. You can see practical, studying local practices involving individual or team-based inquiry. So those of you, particularly like in school settings, you can engage your colleagues on not just subjects. It can even be behavior. It can be clinics to improve the performance of a group of students who are struggling in the sciences or in maths or in languages. Siku hizi wanafunzi wengi wameidharau lugha ya Kiswahili. So you can do some action research to show a difference and therefore inspire others kujiendeleza katika uzoefu wa lugha ya Kiswahili. So really focusing on teacher development and student learning, implementing a plan, and leading to the teacher as a researcher. Because now you'll incorporate all these ideas that you're learning in research methodology. It is also participatory, studying social issues that constrain individual lives, emphasizing equal collaboration, focusing on life-enhancing changes. Imagine that set of students who will just become now, perfect in those areas they were struggling in. But for me, resulting in the emancipated researcher, because you're actually turning your theory into practice in this design. When we are talking about practical action research, please remember Mills, 2011, dialectic research spiral, identify an area of focus collect data, analyze and interpret the data, and develop an action plan. Yeah, and you can also develop an action plan in an area that you know and go straight to collect data and analyze and interpret the data. Very, very practical. Features of participatory action research. It is a deliberate exploration of a relationship between the individual and others. Others could be your students, others could be your colleagues. Participatory, people conduct studies on themselves. Practical and collaborative. Emancipatory, challenges procedures, challenges the way we have taught maths. Helps individuals free themselves from constraints found in media, language, work procedures, and power relations. And it is reflexive or dialectical, focusing on bringing about change in practice. So I'm praying that some seed will be planted, a seed of interest. And 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 out of this class of 100 will say, I want to try action research. Now, stringers is another one. Think, look, act. Key characteristics of action research. It has a practical focus. Researchers study practical issues that will have immediate benefits to teachers, schools, and communities. They educate the researchers' own practices. So it is self-reflective research by the educator researchers, turns the lens on their own educational classroom, school, and practices. And there's collaboration between the students and the teachers within themselves. Look at this collaborative team. And by the way, the parents will come in because you'll tell them we want to change the textbook. We want you to buy us, help us with more paper to do testing. Do you know this thing called Pythagoras theorem? Pythagoras theorem gave me hell when I was doing maths. Not in high school, but in primary. I don't think it was called Pythagoras, but we were taught some properties around angles. And those days in primary, I could not think in 3 dimensions. So I could not see that triangle, the other side of that triangle. I was just seeing the front. So I struggled with that concept. Until one day a teacher came in class and with Manila, and we constructed a box, a triangle box. That's when I learned half base times height. And it made sense because I could see it. But I had struggled. And my Jewish father could not understand. He was so frustrated with me. I would come home, end of term, and I have something like 17% in maths or 20%. And then he realized that I liked collecting stamps. That many of you can't understand. But before, stamps kwa bahasha ya kutuma poster. Stamps were beautiful things. Some had the queen, the king, some had the lion, some had the, which is this tower in Paris. You know, they had beautiful features on them. So we used to collect stamps. When you get letters, you take away the stamps. And there was a stamp album. And my father then, if you read in this book, My Jewish Upbringing, realized that the thing that fascinated me was arranging my stamps in the album. So he said, Laban, I want to tell you something. Last term, you were third last in your class in maths. And that doesn't happen in my family. So if you only get 10 more marks, I'm going to buy you a big stamp album. And then the universe kind of conspired, and this teacher came in with Manila. My takeoff in maths was when I understood the geometry around a triangle in 3 dimensions. So when the term, and now I was enticed by this album. I never forget that. So when I went home, I did not go home with 23% in maths. I went home with, I think it was 62%. So I got the album. I still have it in my library. And I've written on towards being a genius in maths. And that is how I became. Because he was very frustrated. He was a statistician at Nairobi University, a professor of statistics. What am I saying? I'm saying something that parents can trigger something. Your fellow students, your teachers, your staff, your administrators, your community can trigger something in you, and then you end up becoming. And is what I keep telling my colleague faculty. Trigger something. Let a student leave that class and will never forget certain aspects because they met you in that class. So collaboration. That's what we get from action research. Now, characteristics of action research. It's a dynamic process, obviously. The process spirals back and forth among reflection, data collection, and action, and it does not follow a linear pattern. If we introduced, like in one study in Moi, we replaced the Patel book in maths in a high school with the Eshwani book for maths. So it does not follow a linear pattern. It does not follow a causal sequence that from problem to action. So there's no causality. So it's a dynamic process. It requires a plan of action. The action researcher develops a plan for action, formal or informal, and it involves a few individuals or an entire community, the whole of maths department in a school. Maybe representing data to stakeholders, establishing a pilot program, or exploring new practices. Whatever it is, it's very dynamic. It requires an action plan. The key characteristics of action research: sharing research. So groups of stakeholders, local schools, educational personnel, local or county individuals. It's not specifically interested in publication, although you'll have to publish a thesis, but in sharing with individuals or groups who can promote change. And by the way, it is when you do things like action research that your research can cause change, and that your research can give you high publicity, and that your research can earn you a lot of money, depending. Now, just a minute. I hope I'm not going away again. So, sorry about that. So potential, I was looking at this. No, this. Potential ethical issues in action research, coercive data collection. You want to force things. Lack of caring relationships. Not renegotiating relationships. Not considering how results will be used. And not involving participants in all phases of the research. How do we conduct action research? Determine if action research is the best design to use. Identify the problem to study as usual. Locate resources to help address the problem. And identify the information you need. So like, for example, those of you who would begin to develop an interest in action research, I can search some articles for you individually, give you some material to read around action research, to look at actual action research that was done and published. And then from that, you begin to develop your own ideas. And don't hang this action research where you really are not interested in change. So you must be interested in change. The problem is only one phase in which to enter. Catherine, Marete, your hand is up.
Yes, Doctor, can you go back? I would request that you go back to Prof. You go back to, yes.
Yeah.
My concern is number 3.
Yes.
Process to help address the problem. And of course, where the problem lies in most of the problems in addressing challenges and gaps that one wants to address. The problem is the location of the resources. Does it mean that for now, like now we are doing masters, if you are not able to locate resources to address that problem, does it mean that you cannot action research? And then the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to, especially for this class with very many teachers, is that one of the recommended ways of learning in CBC is through action research. Yeah. Maybe, Professor, you can take a little time to focus us on toward that. And because I know you are part of the designers of CBC, so that this class can get it right for the CBC. Thank you.
That's fine. So Magdalene, take note of that, or Dr. Mwaka, take that we can package, we can embed action research in a CBC environment. But locate resources. For example, if you are my master's student and you have 30 students, you have 50 students in your class, and you want to, let me give an example. You want to enhance the reading culture so that they can master their set books. Believe me not, a lot of these publishers have tons and tons of books in their warehouses. If you approach them, they'll give us all those. Remember, all these books we have been reading, once the set book is removed, they go into the warehouses. So there are many ways. If you are 1, 2, 3 students and you want support to locate resources to do your action research, and maybe it is, I'm just assuming it's instructional materials, that we can get. If, for example, you want to enhance skills in drawing graphs, and there are no graph books, you know, there are many people who, if we are doing this research and we do an introductory letter, they'll give us many graph books. So that should not be an obstacle. Let us encounter it. Let us be convinced that this research is going to make a difference. You'll definitely get the resources that you need. Okay. You start with, you know, that the problem is only one phase in which to enter, but there are all these points of entry. That's the interesting thing with the research. Once you have identified your problem, it doesn't have to start there. You can start by evaluating existing data. You can even start by an action plan, taking action, and then walking backwards. So these are the areas that you deal with when you're doing action research. Identifying the problem, collecting data, evaluating existing data, taking on. Now, for example, how did you realize that there is a problem katika ufunzi wa lugha ya Kiswahili kwa hiyo shule? It is the performance in Kiswahili. So you have been looking at the performance of Kiswahili and you see the data is showing that we are doing very poorly, right at Form 4 and even at Form 1. Then you evaluate the data. You evaluate the data. Look for trends in that data. Look at the teacher capacity that is leading to this performance. Look at the attitude of students towards the language, lugha ya Kiswahili. Then you can now sharpen the problem. What is it that you want to do? There's a manifestation of the problem, but now you want to identify the problem. If there's no intervention in this trend, then the propagation of Kiswahili as the official language in our country will be in vain. Or is the problem the non-Kiswahili teachers, the non-teachers of Kiswahili, sorry? Could they be the problem? Yeah. Taxonomy of action research Data.
Excuse me, Prof. Excuse me, Prof.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, if I really want to get it right on action research. Thank you again for the opportunity. I have in mind a case where an action research was done in one of the schools in Nairobi, whereby the learners were absent most of the times in class. And the teachers wanted to find out why the high level of absenteeism. And on doing their check, they came to learn that most of the learners who are absenting themselves from class were actually complaining of stomach problems, or rather issues of diarrhea, issues of intestinal issues, and which could have emanated from a course in the school. So when they did further research, they realized that learners were actually unhygienic. And one of the solutions they came up with was that they installed hand washing points in almost every school, in every class, outside every class, so that the learners could come from the washrooms, clean their hands before they get in class. And that drastically reduced the cases of absenteeism and the cases of complaints about ailments of the stomach. Now, my question, when it comes to action research, in most cases, it is a particular setup, probably a problem that is, the issue has been identified within a specific context or setup. Prof, I would want you to clarify to us, when it comes to that, how do we handle the issue of the population, the target population, the sampling frame, and the sample?
Yeah, so you see that those are parameters now that we can only get to them when we have identified what is it that we want to research on. If you want to see an improvement like in hygiene, then your sampling frame must be the population. You get what I mean? It has to be the population. It has to be the whole school. So you must ask yourself the implications of doing action research across a whole population. And what we said here, let me go back here, locate resources. You see, you are multiplying the problem. But I expect you to do a sampling frame. So, for example, you can find out which age cohort is more susceptible to this condition you're talking about. And you can take the sampling frame to be in lower primary. And even not that, you can even take it to be pre-primary and see whether the situation will change. Then you can scale up the research. So those are good questions you're asking. That means the ability to conduct research will require that you think on a micro level and then ask yourself, can I actually handle this sampling frame, this target population? And that could also be a reason why you can't. And now we don't talk about action research, but we talk about a study on the predicament in that school and make recommendations. That's what I would say there. Now, data collection techniques, experiencing, examining, and inquiring. So there's experiencing through observation and field notes, like you observed in that school. And look at the last item here. They are talking of this last item, passive observer. That is a refractive bystander. So here we are. When the researcher asks, and I don't know what you'll use, depending on what you're going to study. It could be informal interview, structured formal interview, questionnaires, attitude scales, standardized tests to see how they are performing, and then examining what is available, documents, journals, using and making records, etc. So action, research, data collection techniques, we normally say the 3 E's: experiencing, inquiring, and examining. Steps in conducting action research: implement the data collection, analyze the data, develop a plan for action, for intervention, and implement the plan and reflect on it. Evaluating action research focuses on practice or community issues. By the way, I don't narrow your perspective of action research to education. No. Look at the studies, look at the work World Bank and World Vision does on nutrition, on the rights of children, on literacy rates. That's part of action research. They bring in interventions and they observe. And they try to change the situation as they go along. So I'm leaving this open to the minds of people to say, I want to do action research around this one, this intervention, to solve this problem. Action research collects multiple sources of data, involves collaboration with others, the community, the parents, the teachers, shows respect for all participants, advances an action plan to change, to improve practice, is reflective of researchers, enhances lives of participants, develops a plan, and reports useful research. Why am I crying that some of you should do action research? You'll be able to give us some useful research, practical research that will cause change. And those are the 2 designs that you will encounter. I know most of you will do survey, but I'm also pleading that some of you will do action research. And I'm hoping that if not at master's, but at PhD, some of you will put your head on the chopping board and try a meta-analysis. Yeah. Open for discussion. Any questions you want to raise?
And raise your hands if you have any question. Edwin?
Thank you, Prof. I don't know if I missed on this one. Did we put action research under qualitative or quantitative?
Both.
Oh, thank you.
Both. So I have no problem I have no problem, absolutely no problem, so long as you can justify. Yeah, but you notice that action research inevitably pushes you towards mixed methods approach. Inevitably. Even if you didn't want, inakusukuma huko. Yes, any other comment? Doesn't have to be a question. Any other? What do you think of this action research? Tell me, it sounds okay, but it seems to be complicated. Eh? And me, I want my master's quickly, so I don't want these complications. Ayiro. Ama? Any other comment on that? There are hands up.
We do have some hands.
Let's start with Helen, Olo, and then Catherine.
I was just wondering, apart from the examples that you have given us on the action research, would a research by this title, Effects of Education Reforms and Equity in Post-COVID, post-COVID, the effects, just the effects. And then as you progress with the research, you are giving recommendations, like let's say, as Kenya, we should do this and this, so that in case we get ourselves into such an era again, these measures can be put into place. Is that an action research?
Think about it. Remember, action research is supposed to improve practice. Just remember that. And now we can't pick on examples. It will be too, what we call, arbitrary. But ask yourself, is this improving practice? What is this? Is this going to improve practice? Because that's what action research is supposed to do, improve practice. So if it is going to improve practice, then it's okay. If it is not, then we have to think again. Yes, more questions? I want some reflections as I prepare for us to do the last part.
Yes, Prof, you had called my name.
Yes, go ahead.
I think today I've talked too much, but I think
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Prof,
It's okay.
I want to say that Prof, every time you present to us these aspects of research, we keep, like me, my mind keeps spiraling and coming up with ideas. I'm so glad that you have presented this topic on action research in a way that I changed my workstation recently, and one of over the last 2 weeks, I have identified a serious problem, and it is so serious that it affects the education sector so much. And I'm even wondering, I think I should have a chat with you. It could be a point of action research. I really want to appreciate the way you are growing us into research, because you have been opening our minds. You have also been opening our ideas. This is a great thing, Prof. I wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
I also wanted, because I don't want to talk again, Prof, I wanted you at the end of the lesson, you clarify to us whether for the article on tracker, whether we must bring it hard copy or it is okay if we just scan and put it on the due online. if we download and annotate, I like annotate. Is it okay that we can just upload it on the
That's okay.
online, or we must carry
That's
a hard
okay.
copy?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
But I want to, I thought we discussed that. There was also a colleague from a lover of trees. I wanted to tell her I love trees passionately. That's why I have a target of 100,000 trees at main campus. And we are now past 50,000. I love trees. But I keep really asking all of us, just like in religion, we must exhibit wisdom and tolerance. You know, I've had issues with people, Christians who are very biased, have a stand about, having Muslim students in Daystar. I have stood my ground and said the only way you become more human is when you allow that other human being to look at your ways. And whom do we evangelize? Do we evangelize the converted? I don't know. I'm just giving that as an example. But I've also had a lot of bashing, even from, the same on the other side, I'm not doing enough and so on. Yeah, I think in life, just be of good cheer and be be fair and courageous in all these situations. So I am hoping that we in this class will attain a certain level of balance when we are looking at these things. But on the submission of your assignment, please submit in whichever form. We agreed you can do the annotation, turn it into a Word document, do the annotation, return it to PDF and send it. No problem. But also, you know how I became a maths and a chemist. I was taught by a Mr. Guy. He was called GUI Guy at Upper Hill School. Was my chemistry teacher. And then there was Shokros, who was my maths teacher. And the one I was telling you about, Pythagoras, I was in primary school. That was not in high school. By the time I was in Upper Hill, we had quite a group of Asian students, and they were wizards in maths, but they could never catch me in the night. I was too good for them. But Guy would come to my side when I'm doing a titration and bend and get so involved with my burette and how I am piping. I'm pipetting the solution into the flask, that I got, at that time I didn't know what a cologne was, but he had such a strong, wonderful smell around him. So I kept on calling him, not to show me I knew how to measure the meniscus, but I would call him so that I could get the smell. Huh? And in the process, I perfected my running of the burettes and titrating my solution. So sometimes, Catherine, is it Catherine Marete?
Yes, Prof.
It's good for you to try and meet this Dr. Mwaka and know what cologne does she use. What perfume, not cologne, what perfume does she use? It might just cause something. It might stir up something. But also, you should also know that, my God, my research lecturer, Professor Ayiro, his armpits stink. That guy doesn't use any cologne. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying, but, you know, yeah.
No.
So it's up to you. If you come with your hard copy, I mean, I'm talking about those of you who can access DAST. I'm not talking about our colleagues out of the country. That encounter sometimes makes a big difference. The cohort one had never met them until on my birthday, they conspired with some of my lecturers. I don't want to name them. And they went and bought a huge cake, but they did something impossible. They had this, I don't know what you call it. They took pictures of themselves and put them on a large board. And not pictures themselves, but artistic impressions of their pictures. And they had signed off some message. Imagine, about 50 of them. It's in my office. I can't take it anywhere. I treasure it so much. So what did that cause? Endearment. I was in a meeting with the private universities, vice chancellors in Mombasa, our annual meeting. And they were all very excited and saying, oh, now we have online programs, so our masters and PhD students don't come. Then I told them, but mine, I've asked them, those who can come to come on 8th, and we have lunch together. I spit saliva on them, and they tell me how they feel about DAST. And I think that communion is very important. By the time I finished talking, they were all saying, that's a wonderful idea. You know, some of these people have never come to campus. They have never even known aspects of our culture and so on. So we'll try as much as possible to encourage you. Those who are out of the country, when you hear I am in the US, we can have lunch, or in South Africa, or in Malawi. If I'm traveling there, you know, my course coordinators can inform you. The VC is traveling, he'll be in Lilongwe or Blantyre, or he'll be in Lusaka, or he'll be in Beijing. You know, we can create those situations where we meet and interact. I think they're useful because we are human beings. All right. Next.
Yes, thank you, Prof.
Yeah.
For the chance.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Who is that?
Juliana Olo.
Okay, Juliana, yes.
Yes. When you just mentioned on the level of literacy or the literacy rates, it just triggered in my mind that I've had an opportunity of interacting with students of different levels of understanding, and come to realize that mostly in the day school, we have students who cannot even write their own names, but they are in class and their parents insist that they have to go through the course. One interesting case was where one student, if you give exams, he would copy the question on the spaces if it is structured, like in Form 1 and 2, you give structured questions. That is what you would copy as the answer. So I'm now interested in this case study of the literacy rates in secondary school.
Yeah.
And my problem is now the action research. How to go about it.
Yeah.
Because it is interesting. We have those students in class, they are there, but the parents would not wish to withdraw them. They want them to do the course to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're thinking. So we'll keep thinking. That's why I'm pushing hard. I want to finish the theory of chapter 3 so that we can now go to start writing our chapter 1. And then we will we'll look at various areas, we'll look at your topics. We'll try to refashion them as we go along. Yeah, so things will get clearer. But I'm glad you're already, it's embedded in your mind. Can I do something there? Yeah. Now, the other design, this
Prof,
design.
Sorry, Prof, we have Sylvia hands up. Maybe just the and kindly check your SMS. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Prof, I have a very small question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for a student doing action research to also bring in some elements of ethnography as they're doing their study.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking that maybe that would enrich the research.
Very good. And all you are saying, since you are a participant, isn't it? Since you are sitting in that situation, so although you are chasing for change to improve, cause improvement, but you are ethnographic. You are actually part of the instrument. That's why I was telling people action research would then be more of a mixed methods approach. Yeah, true. Good thinking. Very good. Okay. Let me just start on this. I know it's late. I'm just about to wind up. But correlational designs are for those of you who are quantitative. You think quantitative. You think in terms of measurement. You think in terms of validating the existing theories. So we are actually quantitative. Let's jump that slide. So what is correlation research? In correlational research designs, investigators use the correlation statistical test to describe and measure the degree of association between two or more variables or sets of scores. So let me give you this example. At MTRH, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, a researcher noticed a correlation between two variables: rainy season and deliveries at the mother and baby hospital at MTRH. So rainy season and the deliveries achieved at the mother and baby hospital at MTRH. So this researcher was trying to use the correlational statistical test to describe and measure the degree of association of a relationship between rainy season and the number of deliveries. This is a correlation. And he found that during the rainy season, more babies are delivered. So this statistic that expresses linear relationships can be described as the product moment correlation coefficient, sometimes called Pearson's R. Hey, class, I am not talking about a causal relationship. I'm not saying the rainy season causes a jump in deliveries. I'm not saying that. That will be a causal relationship, a cause and effect relationship. This is a correlation. There is a correlation. I have established a correlation that during the March or the April-May season, the delivery rate or the number of babies delivered increased by 40%. So does rain cause an increase in deliveries? No. When to use correlational designs. And some of you inevitably, in the mixed methods research, one of the statistics you run to very quickly is this one, the Pearson R coefficient, or the correlation relationship. To examine the relationship between two or more variables, that's what it does, to predict an outcome. So you look at how the variables covary together, and you use one variable to predict the score on another variable. Mvua ikianza tu hivi, wale watoto ambao watazaliwa kule MTRH wataongezeka kweli kweli. And there could be other factors, hidden factors. I don't know what they are. So the development of correlational research started with Pearson in 1895, developing the correlation formula. The R statistic, the small r, Pearson's R, runs from 0 let's put it this way. It can run between -1 and 1 maximum. When Pearson's R is 1, that's a very strong correlation. Euler developed solutions for correlating 2, 3, or 4 more variables. Fisher pioneered significance testing and analysis of variance. That's a very important person, bullet 3, in statistics. I'm sure you'll meet the Fisher statistic. And then Campbell and Stanley write about experimental and quasi-experimental designs, including correlational designs. And then in the 70s and 80s, computers give the ability to statistically control variables and do multiple regression analysis. So it has evolved from that simple correlation into multiple regression, into actually measuring the strength of the variables influencing a certain outcome. So types of correlational designs, and look at this, types of correlational designs, explanatory. When you see explanatory, quantitative. When you see exploratory, qualitative. So correlation designs correlate 2 or more variables, collect data at one point in time, analyze all participants as a single group, obtain at least 2 scores for each individual in the group, 1 for each variable, report the correlation statistic, interpretation based on statistical test results, indicate that the changes in one variable are reflected in changes in the other. Please note the difference between a correlation and a causation. A correlational and a causal relationship. We'll come to that later. So types of correlation design, prediction designs, predict a variable that is used to make a forecast about an outcome in the correlational study. There is the criterion variable, the outcome being predicted. Prediction usually used in the title. Predictor variables usually measured at one point in time, and the criterion variable measured at a later point, because that is the outcome. And the purpose is to focus or to forecast future performance. Characteristics of correlational designs, displays of scores. We shall meet things called scatter plots and matrices in your statistics class. Association between scores. direction, form, and strength. Is it strong? Is it positive? Is it negative? And multiple variable analysis. This is what we call the multiple regression. It's not just in your statistics. I'll also teach you when we are doing chapter 4, after you've come from the field, how to do a multiple regression analysis. And I want to stop here. This is what we call a scatter plot. Displays of scores in a scatter plot. These are, look, I hope you can see this. These are depression scores. Depression scores is the y-axis, and we are measuring the DV, the dependent variable. The outcome is you are depressed. On the x-axis is the IV, the independent variable. So the independent variable, hours of internet use, hours of exposure to the mobile. Do you know I have visited families, and I get so scared, where to contain a child in class 1, 2, or 3, you give them a mobile. And you know, parents are mesmerized. They are so excited that my son or my daughter knows more of the mobile than I do. I'm actually frightened. Because hours of internet use on that mobile is a function of depression, like it or not. So when we take hours of internet use for these children and depression scores, whichever scale you use, it could be arbitrary. This one, when you do that, and you take Laura, hours of internet, 17. So Laura's point would be here, 17. Test score for Laura, sorry, this is 17, test score 30. So this is Laura's point. If we take Rosa, 5 here, hours of internet use, depression scores is, when you take Rosa, we find it is 25. So you plot all these plots on a graph like this. And this graph, where these points, these round balls, these points, is what we call a scatter plot. Scattered. When you do a scatter plot, normally you draw this red line, Miriam is really destructive on this screen. When you take this red line, this one, this red line, you take a red line that the best straight line through these scatter plots. Notice that this line is going up here because most of the points are up here. So it can't be down here because here we have only 2 points. Most of the points are up here. So this line, this red line in statistics is called the line of best fit. Sorry, it's called the line of best fit, this one. And it is on this line of best fit, that I will try to establish the relationship between depression and hours of use, hours of internet use. Now, this is not a correlation. This is a causal relationship. This is meaning that hours of internet use result in depression. And there's more to this most of it you'll do in your statistics, but I'll do it in your chapter 4 when we are doing data analysis. Now, maybe I shouldn't go here. Let me not go there. I'll pick that up tomorrow. So, Magdalene, can you pick that we have stopped at slide 10 on correlation designs? You have noticed you noticed my voice. I'm now sounding very excited because this is what I am paid to do, not as a vice chancellor. I earn my living by playing around with data and torturing students with statistics, and then I am paid.
Right, we noted 10, and I hope all of us, we have this live also recording so that we remind us about slide 10.
Yeah, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very enjoyable class. And we have agreed from what I heard that we'll be starting at 5:30. I hope it's only me who is messing you up, not the other lecturers, because I normally change these schedules because I have crazy schedules myself. At the same time, you come fast. So sometimes when I ask, give me 30 minutes, I'm trying to get from Naivasha to the house and then change but I'll try to be there at 5:30 when I can. I don't want to miss a class when I can avoid it. But I hope the other classes you're not having too many struggles. But thank you very much for being endearing, very endearing students, very determined, and I promise to reciprocate. And now it's just that you have escaped my statistics class. I would have liked to roast you up. Mwaka, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think the students are excited, and then I knew when you started statistics, some of them were just wondering whether this was the best time, but I think for you, this is really where you have the excitement to even teach more because you love numbers and statistics. So I think we just have 2 reflections, and then we can have a prayer, and then we can actually. But so let me, Konora, be your reflection for today. Nora. Okay, Ronald Ondiek, maybe struggling with the mic. Ronald.
And you know what Mungares is telling me. Kindly defer the next lecture to another time. Because of time, we may not be able to absorb new information. We have done well for today. Kindly stop.
Ronald.
Mungare, I'm going back. I'll reconstitute the class. I still have some.
No.
Huh?
Hey, Prof. Nachoma.
I still have another 10 minutes.
All right, Ronald.
Okay.
Ronald, just a minute and finish up, Ronald. And then a lady, one more, and then we.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayiro. And I'm very glad for the lecture that our dear professors taught us today, taking us through the 3, though the third one is not complete, taking us through the 3 designs. I'm very happy. And in fact, I just wanted to ask why. I don't remember whether it was in primary or high school, where we were being told that the line of best fit should touch most of the points. I don't know whether this one of statistics is the same or
it should
but
be.
I know the professor will clarify that.
Yeah, the line of best fit should be attracted to where the most points are. But at the same time, it must also be felt by the other points. Yeah, but we'll come to that later on. Good.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah,
and finally,
so I'm always listening.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Actually, it's my first time to speak before him. I've been scared all the time because I've never spoken to a professor before. But I wanted to say that I'm always moved by the devotion that he usually gives us. And sometimes with my wife, we do listen. Even today, when it was starting, I put him on loudspeaker so that even my wife could get the devotion that you are sharing. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Mwaka, can we have Ronald sit with the professor on the 8th, and if he can come with the wife, that would be nice.
Yeah. Please be free to come with your spouse. Will really, that's how we know how you love and they care about you. Finally, Irene Munandi. Irene, are you there? Okay. Isabella, we are finishing up. Your last, if not none, we will close with prayer. Isabella? Isabella, I hope you're not as scared to talk to a professor. Isabella?
Thank you very much, Dr. Mine is just to thank Professor for all the commitment he usually puts in. As we can relate, the way I said, he has always a busy schedule. We actually appreciate the way he usually leaves behind some of the work that is associated to him so that he can come to class and attend to us. Actually, receive our acknowledgement and our appreciation as students. Because it takes a fatherly heart that Daystar has for us to achieve the goals of education. Actually, I was very much touched by the opening remarks, whereby you said that despite in wherever situation you are, we just leave everything unto God. Actually, I was touched by that sermon, but we had to start the lesson. Because when we began our semester this February, actually, I can say I was in that situation whereby I was very low because actually for now, I'm currently based in DRC.
Okay.
And as I'm speaking, I'm in Goma, and we all know about the security situation here. So by the week we opened our semester, that is when we had the clashes here and the militia taking over the town. But I was unable even to attend the first 2 weeks of the class. So every time I could get some time, or maybe I could connect with the internet, I will go through the recordings because I could not even feel like deferring the semester because of the togetherness we have and the determination that we all want to finish this year. So thank you very much for all the encouragements. And we want to tell Daystar that we don't take for granted that sermon that you usually begin with, because you usually touch our hearts as students. And thank you very much for that.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much. And feel free to talk to me as well when you need any debriefing. Other than just being that, I'm also into the mental health, and that also helps. So I want to wish you a very good night and hope to see you on 8th March. Every other time we shall be reminding you so that you can join us. May God bless you wherever you are. And thank you so much, VC, and have a very good night. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.